Hey, my name is Sarah, and welcome to the very first episode of Talking Fast. I'm Sarah. Alongside me here every week for the foreseeable future is Jacob Morris, my co-host, also my Andrew Jacob, if you watch the vlogs. How are you doing?
Sarah, I'm good. I'm happy to be here for the foreseeable future and hopefully beyond. Sounds a little ominous, but...
I mean, we'll see. It's only week one.
I'm excited to be in the hot seat then.
This is our very first episode. It's very exciting. It's been a long time coming. Before we dive into why we're starting a podcast in 2023, we're going to go through the segment that we're going to kick off every single week where we talk about what we're watching, who we're listening to, and what we're drinking. And to kick things off, Jacob, what are we drinking right now?
Right now, well, we're new to the new year. For me personally, health is wealth. So I'm drinking water.
Are you doing a dry January as well?
Oh,
yeah, you go to Mexico next week.
Well, I'm going to Mexico next week, so probably not. People are saying damp January, though.
That's a good way of doing it.
Yeah, so, maintaining a good amount of healthy H2O for the most part, but also just trying to cut back a little bit after a good end to the year with quite a few parties and going out and whatnot around the holidays.
Yeah, I think everyone's kind of collectively taking January to reset. That is also why I am also drinking water. I'm doing a dry-ish January is usually how I put it. Yeah. I have a couple birthdays at the end of the month that I have been told I cannot be dry for, so okay. we'll see how that goes. But yeah, dry-ish. I like damp. That's a good way to put it.
Conscious consumption, just like maintaining awareness of being somewhat healthy.
I like that for 1 month.
Yes,
so
that's
out the window
right.
For the
well,
rest
then
of
the
it.
Summer comes around, and who knows?
Exactly. So next up is what are we watching right now?
Ooh, this is good. What do you have?
Okay, so Nolan and I are trying to watch all the potential best pictures. For those who don't know, Nolan's my boyfriend, and we have never watched all the best picture nominees before the Oscars, and this year feels like a sneaky good year to do it because I've actually already seen half the movies on like the potential list. They haven't actually released the list yet.
Right. How long is this list that you're working through?
Like 10 right now, because there could be potentially 10 nominees. There's probably going to be 8, and I've already seen like half of them, like Elvis and Top Gun and those types of movies I already saw. This weekend I watched Everything Everywhere All at Once. Mind blown.
I've only heard good things but haven't seen it.
You would love it. It's amazing. It's amazing. I was like, how did you make that movie? And then I watched Babylon.
That's the Brad Pitt one?
Yeah.
Is that good? I've heard mixed things about that.
The first half, incredible.
Okay.
Second half, they didn't know how to end the movie, and that's all I'm going to say. It feels like 2 separate movies.
Okay.
But it's the spectacle of it is amazing.
The Oscars are still a ways away, right?
March,
a few weeks?
second week of March.
So a couple of months to work through. That's a reasonable goal.
Yeah, 100%. So I think there's like The Fabelmans. There's a couple more movies that are mostly on stream we have to watch, but hopefully...
Do you do an Oscar? Do you do like an Oscar ballot kind of thing?
Always. So that's why this year I can like actually do it properly.
An informed decision for
instead of me just going like, I love Greta Gerwig. Like that's how I normally pick. So... I think this year I'll actually be able to make informed decisions, hopefully.
Okay, that makes sense. For me, what I'm watching, and this is, maybe, I've watched The Glass Onion and The Menu.
That's one of the ones, those are 2 of the movies that are on the list.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure. They're like kind of mystery, comedy, a little bit of horror on
like
the Menu side.
Like they won't win, but they're on the list.
I could see them like maybe...
Sneaky?
I don't know. Who knows? Some sneaky categories or something. Honestly, costume design in The Glass Onion.
Incredible.
It's not like your go-to like a period piece or something like that you're going to think like, wow, that's costume design. But it was spot on and just like fun movies.
And with the masks, it was also clever. It was so good. It was such a good movie. The Menu though, is it like scary? Because I don't like scary movies.
It is and it isn't. There are like some shocking kind of...
I can do a shock.
Short scenes. But like it's more of a thriller, I would say, than like a scary horror movie. It's interesting. Good to know. It's good. And that girl is, I can't remember her name.
Anya Taylor-Joy.
From like The Queen's Gambit and everything.
Yeah. Anya Taylor-Joy
has been in so many different popular things recently.
What are we listening to?
Ooh, what do you got for this?
So, I mean, everybody else's answer should be this podcast.
Of course.
And every week after this, I can just say that. No, but I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently, obviously trying to get like ready into the mode because I'm going to like a hosting mode now. So I've produced a lot of podcasts, but this is my first time being on the other side of it. So, I've just been listening to a lot of like Smartless because they use like the casual conversation like perfectly. So I've been going back and listening to a lot of those episodes.
I was just listening to on the way here. I'm a big Armchair expert fan. Does that, am I like your Monica Padman to the Dax Shepard?
Yeah, kind of.
But I was listening to, there are 2 really good episodes that are out right now, and I haven't finished either of them, but I started both. The first being Anna Kendrick, which was like recently. I love Anna Kendrick. If
Is she like celeb crush?
Yeah, Anna, if you're listening, come on this show.
She was in that movie Alice Darling. I went to the premiere of it at TIFF, and I went to the after party, and she was there.
You
and I
spent time.
Well, I went up to her because I was like 2 margaritas in, so I had the confidence to do it. But actually, oh my God, it was more than that. It was like 8 years prior. I thought you were going to say more than that, 2 margaritas. No, 8 years prior, I was at Toronto Metropolitan University, and they used to do movie premieres like at the theater. Yeah. And so we would line up in first year and then go and try and see people. We were trying to see Ryan Reynolds, but she was also in the movie. And I took a selfie with her on the red carpet. And
what movie was this?
The one where like he chops her head off and puts it in the freezer or something. It was some indie movie. I don't know what it's called.
Alert. I haven't seen it.
So yeah, it's from like 8 years ago.
Anna, I'm not watching.
So violence against Anna, my God. So anyways, I like had this selfie with her, and it was to the day 8 years later.
Oh wow.
That I was.
So you had an in? Did you?
So I did. So I went up to her and I went, I just need to show you this because like 8 years ago to the day, I was like standing outside.
Like last year's TIFF.
No, I was standing outside like.
You guys go way back.
Waiting to try and meet her, and then I took a selfie. I was like, I took this selfie with you, and okay, but then she was like kind of annoying about it because she was like, "You're so obsessed with me," and I kind of looked at her like,
"That sounds like a fun way."
No, but it was like kind of annoying, and I was like,
"I can't take a negative anecdotal story."
It's not negative. It's just like I just didn't know how to react. I was like, "Haha!" Like it's just funny. Like so now we're both here, and
did
she
you
goes,
take another one?
No, and she no. And I was like, oh, it's just funny. And then she's like, oh, it's nice to see you again. I was like, yeah, no, you too. And then that was the end of it. She was like leaving.
Okay.
It took me the whole night to have the courage to do this.
Well, good on you. Good on you.
Sorry, I had no idea. I would have like taken a video for you. I had no idea. Now I know.
You know what? That's for next time. For the third time. 8 years from now, please just take a video and then send it to me. And then the last thing is that the other second point that for the episode was Phil Stutz, the therapist of Jonah Hill and a bunch of other people that was Jonah Hill released a documentary about
right.
him. Really good. So he also has another episode on there.
I'll have to listen.
That's what I've been listening to.
You can all catch up on those after you finish listening to this.
Yeah. Make sure that you listen to this maybe once or twice, maybe twice.
And we'll be back right after this. We don't have ads yet. So I don't know why I said we'll be back right after this. Why is she starting a podcast?
This is a really good question.
I think that's a really good way just to start the first episode, especially in 2023. I keep saying especially because, I mean, every year, not even every year, every month, it feels like there's a new article that comes out saying like podcasts are dying or this platform or this, or like it kind of goes with like whether you should be starting on certain platforms in certain years and whatever, which we'll get into. I don't think there needs to be a time limit for any of it, but just so you all know, normally this segment will have a guest in it, but if we don't have a guest and no one wants to talk to us, it'll just be Jacob and I talking about whatever we want.
Highly unlikely, but maybe. It's a possibility. And you know what? Maybe there's just times that we just want to talk about whatever we want, and just we could do like a catch up every
exactly
once a year.
You're like you're mysterious to people. Like they just know you as Manager Jacob.
I think so. Or what I realized or found out recently at your last event was Izzy came up to me and she said that a friend had seen me in the background of some vlogs or something that. And she's like, her friend had said to her, oh, like, who is that? And Izzy's like, oh, that's Jacob. And she's like, oh, is that Sarah's assistant? And some days, yes. Some days, yes.
Do you want to know what? Today being one of those days when I was post-therapy in an Uber that was running late, coming in a panic to shoot our first episode. And I was having a mental breakdown in the back of the Uber because I didn't have water. Yeah. And Jacob's like, I'll pick you up a water. And I was like, I promise I won't always be this much of a diva.
Most of the time, though, and I feel like some people know me as this, is Manager Jacob.
Yeah, that's like what you're known as. It's like, well, the graphics say it says Manager Jacob.
Yeah. So, but how, I guess the question is, how does Manager Jacob find himself in this seat is what is going to be on people's minds.
Yeah, that's a great question.
How did we get here, Sarah?
I honestly, we've been prepping for this for so long, I almost forgot. I was thinking about it on the Uber here. I'm like, how did we get here? It's because like a year ago was our first discussion being like, we're really going to launch a podcast in 2023. It was like 2022. It was our 2022 planning meeting that we were like, I was very vocal about how I wanted the podcast to happen. Yeah. For sure. That year. And to the point where we thought it was going to happen in like in April.
Well, you had also even before we even started working together had talked about starting a podcast.
Yeah, so I actually had already been in the works and done test episodes with the same people that we were using this lovely studio from. So I'd already been in the works, and I'd gone through the whole thing before. I've never gotten to the point where it actually launches though. So fingers crossed this time it actually happens. No, and so it's been something that's been on my mind for years. And if early vlog like watchers will remember, there was like in COVID, I was like doing practice episodes in my apartment and like teasing a launch of a podcast that I just kind of like stopped talking about. It never came. It didn't feel like the right time. Like it just, everything led us to like this, and how you came into it. I remember being so nervous to ask you if you wanted to do it. Cause this was like, it was mid last year, early last year. I'm not quite sure, but, obviously like between the events and everything, our relationship's gotten a lot closer now, but I think it was still very like work. We only talk about like, not robotic, but it was still very like client, like manager relationship. Like it hadn't really crossed over into more of a friendship yet. So I was very nervous to ask you.
Professional. Very professional. Whereas something like this, talking fast, is in essence a little bit more conversational, a little bit more of, we're going to be talking about all sorts of things, but like, it's not just the professional stuff.
And so the thing was, I knew you had a podcast before, that you had started on your own. So I knew you had the experience doing it. We always had really good rapport, especially on like brand calls and like any of our meetings. And like, we always had like a really good like back and forth. So I knew we were good there. And that's why like it like sparked the idea. And I always knew if I was going to do this, I never wanted to do it by myself. I think talking to myself in a microphone like feels very insular, and it wouldn't feel as authentic as making this show where we want to feel like we're talking to people and it feels like you're on FaceTime with your friends or something. And that's kind of the vibe I've always tried to give. And I feel like you can't do that without another person. Yeah. Also, like for you to like challenge me too, right? Like,
well, that's what I was going to say. So like leading up to some of the events that we threw last year or some of the other special projects, remember the merch drop of the tote way back when, one of our first projects. Yeah. There's so much that leads into something like that, right? Whether it be an event, brand collaboration, some kind of merch drop, or anything really, that there is a lot of back and forth, that we did have to have a good rapport, I think, to bring some of those ideas to life. And something like this is no different, where, hopefully we can be sounding boards for one another, or I can, throw out a joke here and there if something within an interview is going wrong, perhaps, which hopefully, fingers crossed again, doesn't happen. We also have a history that people probably wouldn't know too, is like we both went to TMU for the same program.
RTA, baby.
We were both like on the student council of RTA.
Curtis, absolutely.
Curtis. We have a lot of like,
similarities that
not
way.
necessarily mutual friends, but like we know a lot of the same people. Yeah. And like you're coming, at least in the creative industries here that we're, working within, we have a lot of crossover there. And,
For sure.
and, I'm looking forward to speaking to some of those people too on right here. So.
Yes, we'll bring the RTA cult together.
And that's maybe, another to shift it a little bit in terms of the podcast. Like we kind of talked about off the top, this is like a little bit of a pivot for you, coming from, a primarily people wouldn't primarily know you as a TikToker, someone who is in the social media world. Again, launching a podcast is a big undertaking, especially when we're talking about, not doing it like in your living room or something really lo-fi. Correct. This is a big setup.
We had, people had to build this. None of this existed before, which if you follow
you and I didn't do this.
No. That's why I said people.
Yeah, no. That's what I mean. Like we couldn't do this without a lot of help.
I said, Clay, let me put the hard hat on and like come and make. My first response was that would be good content actually. But no, you're right. Like this is not like.
It's a big project, and like and hopefully, I guess what we want to get out of it is something that matches the effort we've put into it so far. So on that note, like what do you hope for this podcast?
It's a big question. Longevity is the main thing. So when we first started talking about this, I didn't even want to have a discussion about potentially doing this until I could think of like 52 potential people we could even talk to. Like, so hypothetically a guest every single week. And that's just my producer brain going like, I need to plan this for longevity. Like if I could have it my way, these 52 people beyond, and that's 1 year like worth of shows. I never wanted to launch something that was just I was gonna get bored of or was gonna die off. which I think is why it didn't work out the first time. And I'm really happy we waited until now to make it work. Even like something like the graphics, and like I went back and forth on the look and feel of this for like a few months. But the other thing is I just really wanted a space where we can talk about things longer. I mean, you know, like with TikTok, the max I can talk to a camera is for 3 minutes, and you can say a lot in 3 minutes, especially me when I apparently talk that fast. But I'm a very naturally curious person, and I think there's more I want to discuss, more I want to explore, more people I want you guys to get to know. I think I've gotten to meet so many incredible people through being a creator, and we're not just going to talk to creators, but like there are some really cool people I've met that I don't think you get to see their full personality just on social media, whether it's through an Instagram post or whatever. So giving those people a platform to be able to express themselves as well, I think is a really unique opportunity. And I mean, if I'm like going dreaming big, we're going on a tour, baby. That's the goal. Across Canada, coast to coast.
We're gonna get donaire.
I've never been to Vancouver. Let's go to Vancouver. Like,
have you not?
No, I haven't. So I know
we're going.
It's shocking. I just want to start creating things for longevity, and I think this is a good opportunity to do that.
Well, also just like your day-to-day job is producing things, not like in a bad way, but for other people. They're projects that aren't, you know, just your own. And this one is your own. And like you say, it's not necessarily it's not about you, but it's going to be things that are like that you're passionate about and the people that you want to talk to. You mentioned that too, like the type of guests you said, not just creators, but like who else are we going to have?
Taylor Swift.
That's like that's the goal. That's the goal.
I will say we have a dream list at the bottom of the realistic list, which is like the dream list of people. I'll add Anna Kendrick too for you.
I was just gonna say, I was like, can we please add Anna?
We'll add Anna Kendrick. That's not that unrealistic.
I don't think so. I mean, you've met her a couple of times. Like, why not have the third time be a podcast?
Why not? I want to talk to like anyone and everyone. Like I said, I'm a naturally curious person. So whether it's authors, creators, musicians, also make sure you let us know who you want us to talk to. We can also talk to normal people. I mean, we're all normal people. You know what I mean? Like, no, but like, it doesn't have to just be entertainment people.
I think know what you mean. Yeah.
That's like something that I think is really interesting, or like people in education, or people in like research. Like, I think there's a lot of like, I mean, we're going to do this weekly, and there's no plan of stopping it. We're going to have a lot of topics to talk about.
Well, but that's kind of what I like picked on when I in the top of the show talking about like the two separate guests on Armchair Expert, right? Yeah. Is one Anna Kendrick. Yes, she's a famous person and she's in the arts. It makes sense. But then Phil Stutz is like a therapist. You know what I mean? Like,
we have my therapist on.
Yes, please.
Years down the road. I don't think she'd like that very much, actually. She'll be like, you said I was going to be on your podcast? But yeah, like that's like, no, but you're right. Like, I think there's a lot of opportunity to talk to a wide range of people.
So that's the guest side, right? That's who we want to have on, and that's kind of open air right now.
Yes.
On the listener side, what is your audience going to get from this? What do you hope that they get from it? You know, you kind of alluded to it as well already, where people who have been following you on social media for a long time, well, they do get like daily vlogs from you that does kind of capture what a day in the life of Sarah looks like. It's also just quite a short piece of content compared to something like this. You know, that's really small bits of your day, whereas this is one long, relatively uncut piece of content. What's the difference going to be, and what do you hope that they get out of it?
That's a great question. That actually just made me very nervous. So you going, it's a very long, it's like 45 vlogs in one would be like an episode of this. Hypothetically, we do about 45 minutes, which is kind of crazy to think about. I just hope that people are entertained. Number one, most important thing. Two, that you learn something, that you take something away from each episode. So you'll notice that the episodes are phrased as questions. So hypothetically, we're answering a question every episode, and hopefully you learn something. I love being that person that goes, I was listening to this podcast and I heard them say, like, you know.
But you know what? That's kind of what I see in like your TikTok comments, for example, anyway. It's like, what are you reading right now? And it's not just that people are looking for it to you for an answer directly, but it's like the community that has been built
for sure.
And
that was going to be my third thing, is just more community building. I think it's really common for, there's no word of a lie. Like, there's lots of creators that have podcasts. That's totally normal. But in this space, in Canada specifically too, like, I don't see it as often, with like crossover with like being able to talk about entertainment or like other areas, I guess. And so that was a big thing for me too, is I just saw the gap. And that's also been a big reason why like the success I have had on social media has come from the fact that I'm just like sharing the life of a girl that lives in Toronto, lives in Canada, whatever. I go to Nova Scotia sometimes, and I don't live in LA in like a huge mansion and drive a fancy car, any of that stuff. So I think just bringing that authenticity and bring that to the community, and then in turn, the community taking that away as well, is hopefully what happens. But I just hope people have a good time. That's really all I'm hoping for. Whether you're driving in your car or like you're walking to work and you're listening to us, just like making us part of your routine, I think is something that's like really special. And I think if that could be what happens in the long term, that'd be really cool.
Absolutely. And then, well, good. You mentioned routine. That is also one other question that I had for you too, is that you already have a busy routine.
Did you notice how I didn't put that question on here? I didn't want you to ask it.
Your day-to-day is already quite packed. You work a full-time day job.
Yes.
You are a social media influencer, a creator.
Hate that word. Thank you.
We hate the description of it, but you know, you produce social content for social media.
And for brands, yes.
And for brands, as both professionally and just like nonstop.
Yes.
You have a bunch of other like secret projects, let's call them, that are not small.
If that ever ends up working out, then down the road people are gonna be like, that's what they were talking about episode 1.
There are a ton of things on the go. Like one of them's bound to you know, come around eventually, but it's something that you're putting energy into, right? So where does the podcast fit into this? Are you nervous about it? How are you feeling about that?
Okay, nervous about it? No, because once I've like decided I'm doing something and it's like part of the structure of the schedule, that's like what we're doing. We're just planning ahead. We're going to put it in the schedule. We're here. There's a physical space. I have to come here to do it. I think if it was another, like, that's why I never really started YouTube, is because I never wanted to take away doing YouTube vlogs. Then it would take away, like, I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me. It would take away from my time doing TikTok, right? Because it's like, it's kind of the same thing. And I would just be doing it in my apartment still, and it'd be a really easy excuse to just stop doing it. Whereas this is like, I physically come here. There's other people that work on this project, and that's a big thing for me, is accountability with other people. So we have Izzy, like, who's taking time out of her day. There's you. There's like Clay and his entire team here who are helping us make this happen. So like, I would never have signed up for this or like started working on this if I didn't think I could be putting 100% effort into it. And that's why we've waited so long.
I was just going to say, because we've taken a long time to kind of build it up from the ground and not rush into just getting a podcast out.
Yeah, no. And it's fun. I have fun doing it. So like, I absolutely wanted to continue. Like, I want to do it. Like, I have fun doing this. So I'm not nervous about that. Am I nervous about like, and is my therapist nervous about us like trying to balance it like a little bit? But I'm really taking January to just like sit with myself and like not overbook myself. If I do make plans, be a little bit more spontaneous and just like allow myself to like sit and relax and prioritize what I want for the year. And I think that's going to really help. But yeah, no, I'm not really nervous about juggling it. To me, it's just another part of like the Sarah Jenkins, I hate that term, but the Sarah Jenkins brand, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's filling in the same way as TikTok.
Yeah, and it's good. I think like, you know, we already talked about this. I'm the, you know, manager Jacob, and I have, you know, other clients. Let's pretend for a second. But one thing that I always say to anyone that I'm working with too is that like, if you're taking on another big project, you just make sure that it's something that you enjoy doing. Exactly. That you're not, regardless of if it's going to bring you some kind of success, whether that's like, you know, more followers or like more opportunities to work with brand partners or something, that is not important whatsoever. The important thing is like that you're producing content that you're going to feel proud of, that you like doing on a daily basis, to have that longevity that you're talking about, you know, wanting to build it into something bigger. And then at the end of the day, just like generally for your mental health, right? To be happy. Exactly. Well, even if you are, you know, filling your schedule with thing after thing after thing.
You like being concerned about my mental health and being too busy, as you just alluded to. Jacob does have other clients. It's shocking, I know. But my question is for you then, the same thing. Like, I guess, why did you want to come on to this project? And then 2, do you have time to do it?
I for sure have time to do it. Luckily, well, first of all, my house is just down the street. So
that's true.
It's pretty ideal.
That's true.
Second of all, I'll absolutely have time for something like this. I set up my schedule in such a way that, yes, I work
all the
There's
time.
never like an off the clock for me.
No, because Jacob will be like training for a marathon and like answering emails at the stoplights.
Yeah, like I'm going to Mexico, but I'm not taking the week off. Like I will just be working from the beach.
I didn't even question it. You're like, I'm going to Mexico, and I was like, great.
Essentially, whenever I'm traveling, it'll just be I'm going to be working from here, if it's a vacation or not. But at the same time, because I do that, it does afford me the opportunity to be flexible with my schedule, to make a lot of room for things that I want to be doing. And this is definitely one of the things I want to be doing. You know, I haven't had this, it's a little bit of a creative outlet, you know, to have a conversation on a weekly basis. It's a good check-in with you as well. Maybe some of our like, you know, tea will leak out onto the podcast every now and then.
You want it so badly.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to hear like the dirt on, you know, well, it doesn't matter.
I have no dirt. I did a whole brand deal where they're
not
like,
on you, not on you.
We did a whole brand deal where it was like, tell us an influencer story that's dramatic and whatever. And
it's true. We had to work for that one.
And the most like dramatic story I had was an awkward encounter where I didn't hug somebody that was trying to go in for that's it. That's the tea.
Yeah. Plus, I just like being in front of lights.
Yes,
I haven't been
clearly.
in front of lights in a while, you know. It's also like not a secret project. You've clearly teased what's happening.
I call it the not so secret project because I get annoyed when creators do that, and then I was becoming the person that does that.
Do people hate us because of that now, do you think?
No, I don't think so. Because we revealed very early that it was the not so secret project, and I kept saying I was going to record it at a studio, or I was like very blatantly talking about it. So I think people were aware of what was happening. Yeah. At least I'd hope so. I'm just happy that it's finally out. I just was keeping the name and everything a secret. So I'm just glad everything's out in the open now. And now we can just join us each week, and then we'll be good to go. In the final block of the show each week, we'll be answering your questions and attempting to give advice in our hypothetical mailbag. So you can submit questions to talkingfastshow@gmail.com, or you can go to Talking Fast Show on Instagram and send us a question there. Izzy will also be sending out a call for questions every single week. You can be advice. It could be silly. It could be anything.
Also, we haven't mentioned, who is Izzy?
Oh, Izzy is our associate producer. She's behind the scenes, and she's also going to be mostly running the TikTok, which is very exciting. So you guys will see lots of Izzy. And if you come to the events, Izzy's at all the events too. So just more incentive to come to the events.
100%. And you can, I don't know if you said this, you can remain anonymous if you want to ask something juicy.
We're like Dumois over here. So you can say anon, please, and we won't reveal who you are.
Like me asking for the tea. Drop some tea in there. Who knows?
It's just going to be Jacob filling the mailbag every single week with all.
Or if anything, it's just not even on the episode. I'll just be scrolling through and just trying to entertain myself. Yeah.
So obviously this week, you guys didn't know this is happening. So we just pulled from questions that we get all the time. And by we, I mean that I get all the time. So with that said, let's open some mail. I was trying to use like the letter opener if you're watching on YouTube.
Physical mail.
Physical mail.
Sarah, the first one that we got here from the mailbag, and this is an easy one because we're kicking off the new year. What is one goal that you have for 2023?
Well, one goal I have for 2023 is launching this podcast finally. So
outside of the podcast, done deal.
Done
what
deal.
Else you got?
I want to travel to 3 new countries. So last year I made a goal to travel to 1 new country, and I went to 2. So this year my goal is 3.
Do you have a lineup?
I think Nolan and I are going to go to Europe again in March, and I think we're going to do Amsterdam. Well, Amsterdam's not a country, but we're going to do like Netherlands. Yeah. I think we're going to go to Belgium.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then I really want to go to Spain. I just logistically it doesn't make sense. It's so far away.
Haley and I are talking about
I really want to do Spain.
Europe right now.
Go to south of France.
Well, yeah, but see, with this thing, we're going to Italy, and I'm like, well, if we're up top in Italy anyway, we may as well do south of France.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what you should do.
If you're already there,
you're already in Barcelona.
That's what I said.
And then you just fly home from Barcelona.
Exactly.
That's what you should do. 100%. That's like the trip I want to do. Like I want to go like around the south of France again. So, anyways, 3 new countries is like probably my biggest goal. I don't really put like hard and fast goals. They're just kind of like more open-ended.
Okay, yeah. Do you do resolutions at all?
I don't do resolutions. I do a goals list for the whole year though.
Okay.
So like, I mean, I joke that like about my resolutions, but I make overall goals lists of things that I'm hoping to achieve for the whole year. So like one of them is planning less things. Like that's just a big, that's like your face is like, that's not going to happen. So,
I mean, it's a good goal.
So for those that don't know, I'm like a notorious planner. I plan all my group outings. I plan everything. And I'm trying to do that less. So that's like I'd say that's my resolution, I guess, but it's like one big goal for the year. So I have the whole year to like achieve it, which would just mean like, I don't know, it's my success standard is just up to myself on that point.
How are you going to stick to that?
With therapy.
I mean, that's good. That's positive.
I mean, it's like checking in and just like not forcing myself to plan. I just get very antsy, and I feel like if I don't have plans one night, I have to plan something.
Yeah.
Which I don't.
But that's good. It's the balance is good.
It's just more so being aware of it.
100%. Yeah. No, and that's why, like, you joked about therapy, but like it's been great. It's a huge positive, but also just like therapy in the sense that you're focusing and doing something.
We're just trying to normalize therapy from the get-go, from episode 1. So I'm going to bring up my therapist. I talk about my therapist a lot. I'm that person that goes,
I love that. That's good.
Did you know I go to therapy? No. So what about you?
Goal for me, I ran my first marathon
at
the end of last year. Sarah's out there cheering me on. Thank you. It worked for the first half, and then I completely died in the second half. So I finished it. Don't get me wrong, I finished it.
So they had like an app where you could track, and I'll be honest, there was a moment where I was like, there's no way in hell I thought you stopped.
Did something happen?
Well, I thought you stopped. At first I thought you had a heart attack, and then I was like, no, he's too healthy for that. And then I was like, and then I thought you just stopped. And I was like, and then I went, logically you wouldn't. I didn't think you'd just stop.
I thought about it, but I couldn't do that.
You could have the DNF.
I had to, exactly, and I had to run past my house. The first half was good and fast, and everything was fine. Just didn't train enough, and so the second half was rough, and I had to run past my house twice, once on the way out of the second half and once on the way back, with like 3 kilometers left, and like almost turned off. But anyway, so the goal for this year is to have like a comeback marathon. So I'm back in training right now.
Amazing.
Through the winter to like hopefully get a slightly better time.
Amazing. Then you'll become like addicted to it. You'll go to Boston. You'll do the whole thing.
Mailbag number 2. Should, and this isn't me asking.
Are you sure? This is your way of slipping it in?
Yeah, right. Should someone start a TikTok account in 2023? Is there room for someone to become a creator? I think that's probably the essence of the question. Yes.
If you have an original idea and you have something that you think you can bring a value, then absolutely. I do think people, it's like what I was talking about at the beginning of this show, like people go, why would you start a podcast? There's already so many podcasts. Well, there's already like so many YouTube channels, and people still are growing every year on YouTube. There's still so many television shows, and I still make new ones. Like there's just like all like the idea that like you hit a peak on a platform with a type of content and then you just like can't do it anymore seems so silly to me.
Yeah.
Obviously like sometimes it goes with algorithms and stuff, but I truly think if it's something you've always wanted to do and you think you can bring value, just start doing it. Like when I started making TikTok videos, it was out of needing a creative outlet because I was unemployed. I never thought it would actually like turn into like something like this, you know? Like I just did it because I needed a reason to wake up in the morning. And so if you just enjoy doing it, then that comes across authentically. And
well, that's what I was going to say. I would say it's probably not worth it if you're going to go into creating a TikTok account this year with the goal of trying to gain a ton of followers.
Oh, so that's the difference. Like if you're like just looking to create content, yes, do it. But if your goal is to become an influencer, like that's number one, you're already off on the wrong foot.
100%. I was going to say separate those two parts of it, right?
Like you can have influence you gain influence from doing something. Like
and I think that these days too, being a bit more authentic with the type of content 100%. That you're sharing is going to give you that success later on.
Agreed.
You're going to build an audience because people are wise to the whole influencer thing. I mean, we kind of cringe at that.
And not even an audience, like what you want more than anything is a community. Exactly. And that's how you actually have longevity, and that's how you'll get to do cool things and like launch other projects, and that stuff is by having a community. So like if your goal is to go and just like look, like I don't do trends personally. Like if I wanted to just like hit viral, I would just focus on that and then that's maybe where maybe I'd have millions of followers right now. Like, who cares? Because if you don't have the consistency in the community, then it doesn't matter.
And from my perspective as a manager, that's the exact same. Like,
Exactly.
I could work with someone who, you know, you need some number of followers and
of course.
consistency in the kind of content that you're putting out to, you know, make it somewhat viable. But I'm looking for something that, you know, there's a ingrained community, and that could be 5 people who are just coming back to your content and like really love, you know, connecting with you. That type of relationship is far more valuable, both on like the becoming a creator side of things, but then also, like you alluded to, like when you're just starting off a new project, make sure it's something that you want to be doing and are going to be happy doing too.
And that's why I'm excited for our first 2 guests for the next 2 episodes, because I think we'll talk a lot about this, about community versus virality and all of that, one being a content creator.
We have 3 mailbag questions per episode, and we're on to the last one already here, Sarah. How, and this is kind of a big one.
If you want to know how big these are, the word light is beside some of them. It's like a light and easy question. We like expose everything. We're pulling back the curtain on how production happens. And then it's heavy is beside this one.
Yeah, so like maybe we should have got a box of tissues or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's a good question. How do you reinvent yourself after a big change? And that could be something like moving to a new city, getting a new job, getting fired, graduating,
been there.
or a big breakup, something like that. We've all been there in like a ton of different, you know, ton of different examples of what could be considered a big change. But like, how do you take the next steps then to reinvent yourself and feel comfortable with that?
Well, I think to start, I don't think you have to reinvent yourself. I think that's like I don't think you ever have to like change. Like, I mean, like, you don't have to change anything but yourself after one of these big events. Like, as an example, a breakup, losing a job, any of that. You don't need to, I don't think you need to like change who you are. But sometimes those are a good catalyst, a good opportunity in which to like change maybe things that you're not happy with. I don't know. Like, I've just always taken big changes in my life as like a new opportunity to create more opportunities, I guess. If that, like, my mom always like drilled in my head, like, you create your own opportunities in this world. And I think that kind of goes with reinventing yourself.
Yeah, and I think like I kind of agree with you on the reinvention word as well.
Yeah, I don't love that word.
Yeah, it's kind of just like revealing more so who you are afterward, right?
Yeah,
and, like,
exactly.
But also I think one thing is like not using the big changes as an excuse necessarily.
100%.
Because you can do those things without a big change.
For sure. But sometimes
It's
like people do need like the kick in the butt and able to do it.
sure.
For sure. Like,
almost most of the time.
example, like,
we're not trying to sit here being like we're perfect
no,
at this.
I would have never started creating content for myself, because I've always been a producer creating content for other people and other platforms. I never would have started doing it for myself if I hadn't lost my job. Like, that's just the reality of it, because I didn't have the time to do it before. So I always had it in me. So I guess that was reinventing myself in a way, because I just channeled that energy differently.
In the middle of the pandemic, I wouldn't have just like shaved off all of my head and like reinvented.
Did you have hair? I've never known you with hair.
I know. I've met Sarah like mid-pandem.
Yeah.
I had hair pre-pandem.
No.
I'm like, you know, I got a bald spot, right? But like, what are you gonna do? So I reinvented myself in the middle
of the pandemic.
But I took advantage, you know what I mean? Because that was a fact anyway. I was like, well, I'm gonna have to go that route regardless.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, let's just.
I almost had to shave my head in the pandemic, but it was for very different reasons. Because I lost half my hair.
Oh.
That was 2020. That was predating you too, though.
Yeah.
On the top of my head.
True.
I think with a new year too, people feel the pressure to reinvent themselves.
Yeah.
You don't have to. I do think though, if that's the little kick of inspiration you need to maybe take on that project or that challenge you've always wanted to, or that like thing you were nervous to do, then I do say go for it.
People always harp on this too, but it's true. Like, no one cares about like you.
It's true. It's true.
At all. And I think that's why big change is helpful, because you feel like maybe a little isolated or something like that. And you can kind of feel that.
And this is a big change. This show.
Yeah,
it is a big change. It's part of our routine now.
Podcasters now.
I don't like the TikTokers, the podcasts.
Sarah doesn't do well with
I don't do well with labels.
With labels.
When they go, you're a TikToker, and I go, ooh.
Do you have a business card?
No.
Have you ever had a business card?
I used to.
Okay.
I used to producer. I'm a producer.
Did you make them for yourself? I made my own.
Absolutely,
originally.
I made my own. On like Moo or whatever. Not sponsored.
Mine. I'm a little bit older than you. No, I used like I got some cardboard. What is it, like?
Cardstock?
Cardstocked for
you used like
my
the
family printer. I was a kid when this happened, but like I did like word processing thing.
Wow.
Pizza box productions.
You just really dated yourself.
Yeah, I was a big time producer.
Go in the comments
back
and,
in the 50s or whatever that was.
Okay, well, thank you for listening or watching. However you consume Talking Fast today, we are through episode 1 in the books. Now you're just stuck with us every single week for the foreseeable future. This is where we do all the cliches. Make sure you thumbs up, like, rate, comment, subscribe, whatever platform you're on. The things that make us look good, go do those things right now. We'll be back with another episode every single Wednesday, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.